Welcome to Talking to the Torso, episode 12. Today I'm talking to Remi Eusebe. Remi is a furniture and cabinet maker based here in Australia who was trained over in France. Please enjoy. Hey folks, today I'm with Remi Eusebe. Remi is a maker and a cabinet maker and furniture guru-y dude in Townsville here in North Queensland. G'day, mate.
Hi Dale, how are you doing?
Awesome. How you been on this, what are we, Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, good, good. Busy. It's a school holiday, so I had my son today giving me a bit of a hand. Um, he made some cutting boards as well later in the day, just to sort of keep him busy, and yeah, that's good.
Good having free staff, mate.
It's not free actually. I give him a bit of money, but it's cheap. And is super easy, very chill, and quite smart and switched on. So it's good to have him around. Yeah,
Awesome. That's the next generation then, hey?
maybe, who knows?
So I guess as you know, I've been doing a whole heap of interviews and chats with people from all over the world about their maker journey and what makes them a maker and what makes them tick and where it all sort of started. Where did your maker journey start and why?
Um, I think I've been woodworking all my life. I remember picking up a piece of timber and a handsaw when I was probably 5 in my parents' sort of backyard. And as a teenager, my dad was into boat models making.
Okay.
It was models, boat models.
Yep.
And he saw that I had a sort of interest about that. So one Christmas he offered me a boat models, which was quite a complicated one. That was a Virginia pilot boat, probably like 30 centimeters long, but with all the small sort of hardware and PCs and stuff. I never finished it. And it took me, I remember, months just to do the hull and that sort of stuff. But I liked it. And that was probably really the start of my woodworking journey, let's say. And then as a young adult, I was making my own furniture. Um, and and then I decided at some point that I was a teacher in a previous life, let's say. I used to teach something that's called technology in France,
Yep.
which sort of industrial technology and design. And so there was a bit of sort of technicality into it and making into it, design making. And I was not that happy after a little while teaching teenagers, and I sort of started thinking of what I could do instead of doing that. And straight away, the answer was furniture cabinet making. That was my first sort of idea. So we were living in southeast of France back then, and I was still teaching, but I went to a small local business, furniture maker, and I asked them, I'm happy to just give you my time. Would you take me on and teach me a bit of the trade and that sort of things? And they said yes. And I was lucky enough to find two persons that were highly qualified and passionate about what they were doing. And they took me on board for about 2.5 years. And that was sort of weekends and school holidays, because I was working as a teacher. I already had a young family at that time. And yeah, they gave me the base, let's say, of professional woodworking, I'd say. And then we moved to Australia. And I said, I don't want to teach anymore. I want to do woodworking. So I started searching for a job into cabinet making and furniture making. And I met Joel Doubled,
Yep.
a very talented furniture woodworker, let's say. And he said,
He's a
yeah,
clever cookie.
he gave me a chance, and I spent a year and a half working for him before he sort of downsized his business and changed a bit what he was doing as a business, I guess. But that was highly formative in the way that it was one job after the other, very high sort of quality expectation.
Yep.
Time was always, the time pressure was always there. So it was working with other very qualified, very talented furniture maker, Isaac Ferguson being one of them.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I went from a sort of basic level of woodworking to a fairly high level of woodworking in that year and a half that I spent working for Joel. Yeah.
So you've almost done two different types of mature age apprenticeships in the way.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So what was the sort of stuff that you were making still in France? Was that very traditional or was that sort of modern stuff?
No, that was custom furniture, and that was cabinetry, but with solid timber element, like kitchen with solid timber doors, typically. Vanities, solid timber vanities, and then tables and all sort of things. It was a mix of sort of classic and modern design, let's say.
Yep.
And techniques that these two furniture makers were using were a mix of traditional and modern technique as well, and a mix of solid timber and man-made materials. So very much like what I found when I was working for Kingfisher Furniture Design. That sort of both traditional and modern approach of the craft, I'd say.
I don't think there's a great deal of choice in that, particularly if you're making it a commercial, money-making exercise, which is if it's a business. And we're back. Welcome to living in North Queensland near a military base.
That's
Mate,
it.
sometimes it's a bit of a nightmare with Wi-Fi and stuff like that with military bases around us. I get this a little bit.
Yeah, you are close to the base where you are, so I guess yeah.
Mate, yeah. If anybody knows the Australian movie The Castle, I live at the
Yes,
castle.
I like that movie. That's one of my favorite. That's a classic.
It's an
Yeah.
absolute ripper. And considering I can see the runway from my front yard, I'm pretty close. So, yes. So, where were we? We were talking about the differences and the stuff between traditional and modern types of furniture, and really more cabinetry, wasn't it?
You asked me what was the difference between the way I was working in France and the way I was working in Australia. I think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yep.
I said there was not much difference. The guys who trained me in France were sort of specialized in painted furniture, like
Okay.
Cerise, patina,
Yep.
and all that sort of color treatment on timber. So they were big on that. When I was working here in Townsville for Kingfisher, there was very little of that. But what was the difference? Well, we were making chairs with Joel quite regularly, and that was sort of eye-opening for me because I discovered, the world of chair making and loved it straight away.
It's a
And
rabbit hole you can go down, isn't it?
that's right, and that stuff kept me awake at night, for hours and hours, and I still just love thinking about ways to make chairs and that sort of stuff, because it is somehow the most complicated piece of furniture that you can make.
And isn't it so weird, for something that you just sit your bum on, it can just be so amazingly diverse and fabulous, and there's no restriction upon form.
That's right. Yeah. I've got books about chairs, and there are thousands of iconic chairs. Not just every chairs, like chair that you've seen at least once somewhere. So it's it is a world on its own, and it's fascinating as a woodworker to go there, and I really like that. But I unfortunately know that I can't really do it as a business, in the way that it is the hardest way to make money as a woodworker, I guess, to make this type of furniture, because they are so labor intensive, so time consuming, so complicated somehow that it's a real trick to sell them for the money that they are worth, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I get the same with, chair restoration stuff. And it's like, how much do you really want this chair repaired?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Because for the cost of actually doing the repair, they're not going to get any economic return on it. It needs to be something that, that affects them, and they've got an emotional attachment to it.
That's right. Yeah. I often think, and I'm always a bit baffled when clients come to me and they say, "Oh, we'd like a dining table," and we start talking about the dining table, and we come to a point where we have a design, sort of on the paper, and they are about to leave, and they say, "Oh, by the way, could you just do a few chairs to go with the dining table, please?" And then I have to explain that, sorry, I just don't talk about it anymore. But I said, sorry, I don't make chairs anymore. I used to, but it's too hard to be paid for what you are spending as time and material and stuff. So I said, I haven't sold a chair for 5 years. And the last time I made a bunch of chairs, that was for a friend, for someone who became a friend, actually. And we made 10 of them. And it took me probably 3 to 4 weeks to make these 10 chairs. So, of course, I didn't sell them for what they were worth. But
exactly.
In that time frame, I can make 4 tables, let's say, and I can sell them for a price that makes sense financially, let's say.
And if you sit there and you trawl through, Marketplace or wherever, you can pick up really high-end, very good quality old antique chairs for 2 parts of bugger all.
Yes, yeah.
Do you reckon that's a trend that's actually starting to change, though? Are we starting to change a little bit here in Australia, even around that want and willingness to have, proper everyday sit at the dining table type of tables? Or are the tables that you're now making really statement tables for a house?
Depends. I do both, and that's and that's a very interesting question, because I work a bit in conjunction with interior designer.
Yep.
And we got this sort of project coming, and they are really sort of one-off piece, sort of architectural, almost sculptural, sort of design. And I believe they are mostly for that, for a sort of aesthetic statement. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of having a custom piece in my interior, and I want that to be my dining table, because that's where my guests are going to come to me. They are going to sit around it. It'll be, a sort of conversation starter, and I want that to be, sort of amazingly different, and and then we have family coming to us and say, well, we want a dining table. We can't quite find what we are looking for in terms of size or in terms of timber. Can you make something for us? And then we make something that is actually functional and that will be actually used on a daily basis. So both of these very sort of different perspective on what this is and what it means, and
And they would often be reasonably different price points as well
yes,
about that.
that's right. Basically double the price for the fancy one, let's say, and compared to just the functional dining table.
I mean, if I get asked to make, custom vanity basins, timber basins for, a house on the hill or whatever like that, and that happens regularly, or even like timber light shades.
Yeah.
It honestly wouldn't matter how much I quoted. I mean, within reason, but if they want that for a particular aesthetic, for a particular design, if it's a seven-figure house, they don't care whether it's a $400 basin or a $1,400 basin. They'll be happy paying the $1,400, and they don't bat an eyelid. And I guess it's that point of where you get to in your journey of your skills and your making, where you're at, and I guess where I'm at, that they're the sorts of things that now come and sit in your lap. But it took me a little while to not be scared about not asking too much. And it's like, well, if this is what the job is, and if this is what it costs, and if this is what the margin is that I need to make to be able to make a living, this is the price.
That's right.
And most people, like at that end, no one really bats an eyelid about that, do they?
That's right. Yeah. It's at the end of the day, it's how much you are selling your life for. Because if you are not selling your time for what it's worth, well, you are taking that time away from your family or from your hobbies, or that sort of things, and you have to think through that when you are in that sort of journey of becoming a professional woodworker or professional furniture or cabinet maker, I guess.
How long did you feel that it took before you were really properly established on your own?
Look, I think I felt like I was really established the day that I started renting my own workshop. The day I moved into this workshop was the day that I felt like, okay, now that's it. I'm pretty much where I wanted to be. It's not the end of the story, but it's a really important sort of step in that story, because I can now establish myself as a proper business with a front door. I can put marketing outside saying, this is me, I'm here. You can come to the workshop. It's a professional workshop, and I can sort of have that that status, I guess, of
Absolutely.
being one of the sort of few established woodworker in that part of the world, let's say.
Well, there aren't many around these days, or particularly up here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I guess it was one of those really interesting things, like when I moved up here must have been in the very early mid 1990s. And I mean, I'd met Joel way back then, um, when he was a very, very young fella, and I knew his dad.
Mhm.
Um, but that was when the backside had fallen out of the fine furniture market, and all of the imported rubbish was coming in from wherever, or the IKEA type of style of whatever, and there wasn't any great want, need, or commitment towards anything that was properly made, properly custom made, and made towards the specifications of what people really wanted. It was just what you could go into a showroom and look at, and that's what you buy, and that was dictated by what was on that particular Better Homes and Gardens or fashion show or TV show or whatever that particular week. It was
Yeah, yeah,
it was it was really interesting, and I think that happened for at least 15 years.
yeah. Okay, yeah,
I reckon that really happened until around probably around 2010.
yeah. Okay. Well, that's when I came to Townsville and to Australia. So, um,
Yeah, so you probably you timed your run pretty well, I think.
yeah, yeah, okay, interesting. Because where I was trained in France in that small workshop, um, I think, well, woodworking, furniture making as a business, custom made furniture, let's say, as a business, was a rarity as well. It was not something that was very common,
Okay.
there
Yep.
there were back then, 15, 20 years ago, a lot of kitchen makers, and probably big company, like national company in France,
Yep.
more than small business, small local business, as it is here in Australia, I believe. But the furniture side of things was already very, very little, back then in France. So I think the trend is that it's coming back somehow with an understanding of the quality and and sometimes the time that we spend as a family or as people around the furniture, if you know what I mean,
Yep.
in the way that you change your car every, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, let's say, but that bed that you bought when you were 20, or that dining table that you bought when you were 30, most of the time it's around for several decades, in your life. And I think people are starting to understand that, to see that, well, maybe I should put a bit more thinking, a bit more money into this sort of object that I'm living with somehow, because that's what it is. They are part of your interior, part of your living experience somehow. Yeah.
And maybe that's part of that journey in terms of, even coming from the tree itself into then something that becomes loved within a family that has been
So,
created within a certain set of parameters that they want.
mm,
And then potentially that can go generations, or it can go to a different family.
that's right.
But the
I
likelihood of it just like being chucked on landfill is less likely than a bit of junk that's made from MDF or chipboard from the 1980s.
Yes, I'm always very excited and motivated when people comes to me and say, "Look, I've got that timber in my backyard or in my garage that's been around for 10 or 15 years. Can you
Yep.
do something with that?"
Yep.
And I'm like, "Yes, yeah, that's what I do. I want to take, something that's meaningful to you, and to turning in something that is even more meaningful somehow." Yeah. And we've got many stories around that sort of yeah, setting here. But The last one is this series of bedhead and bedside tables that we designed and made for a client. And the timber was harvested by the father in the sort of family farm in the Tablelands.
Okay. Yep.
And yeah, and the son moved to Townsville with that timber, and the timber was stored in his sort of backyard shed for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And a huge quantity of timber, like probably, I mean, for a backyard shed, like anywhere between, I'd say, 8 to 10 cubic meter of timber.
Wow.
Yeah, a big shed actually, and a lot of timber.
Yep.
And we made this gorgeous. Not that we did a crazy job, but the timber itself is absolutely magnificent. These amazing bedhead and bedside tables with sort of waterfall effect on the bedside tables with that timber, and I'm always amazed by the result, and I'm thinking this stuff will be in that family for generations. I mean, that's a proper heirloom sort of story here. We are making stuff that will outlast ourselves and the clients by maybe a few generations.
Absolutely. I mean, I was probably lucky that my dad was one of the last Hue and Pine loggers from Tasmania.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I've got still bits and pieces of Hewin stashed around the countryside. But every now and again I'll grab some. It'll be just for something really special.
Yes. Yeah.
But he was one of the first turners, one of the first artist turners in Tasmania. So he sold a lot of stuff in the very early and mid 1970s. And I'm now trying to find all that stuff. So if ever I see it on Marketplace anywhere in Australia, I'm trying to buy it back into the family.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting thing, as well. But yeah, like the timber that he went out and he logged, and this is stuff that is 1,000, 2,000 years old, but now can be made into something that will last, inconceivably another 2,000 years, if it's chosen, for it to be given that sort of life. But yeah, I think that's a fabulous thing, and that you become, as the maker, you become the conduit for that to happen for that family.
Yeah. Another story on that on that same trend. Someone commissioned us last year or the year before to make a table out of same thing, timber that was stuck in a garage, but the timber was actually from a tree that was in the backyard of the family house, and the lady as a kid was climbing into that tree, playing with cousins and siblings.
Yeah.
The tree was cut, slabbed, stored for 15, 20 years, moved from New South Wales to North Queensland.
Oh,
and
wow.
and she said, "Can you do a dining table for my family with that timber?" And we made a very simple, dining table, 4 legs, 4 rails, a top, mountain ash, if I remember well.
Okay. Yep.
With a lot of interest in the timber, and I mean that means something to that lady, but that means something to me as well as a maker, because I feel like I've done something special there. So that's that's great. That's what we want. Yeah.
But I think that's part of the passion of what we do.
Yes, and people feel that. I mean, they feel that. When they come with that sort of inquiry, we are responding to it, in a very positive and engaged way, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And like, if I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to Joel, or I'm talking to, other turners from around the world, or whatever around this stuff, and you see that glint in the other person's eye, because
Yes,
you're genuinely enthused and excited about it. Wow.
that's right.
That's what
Mm.
makes this whole making thing so addictive. It really is. And so much fun. Because otherwise it can become really hard work. But this is the stuff that just gives it so much reward.
Yes, I personally, um, I like what I'm doing, and I'm really passionate about it. I think about it a lot. Even when I'm on holidays or at home, I sometimes just think about that craft, about that sort of design process, about how we are going to make this happen, with what we have in the workshop and that sort of stuff. But I really take it as a work now, not as a sort of hobby or as a, I don't know how to say that, as a, it is something that I'm happy to go away from as well, in the way that I'm doing so much of it,
Oh,
on a daily basis, that sometimes I just need a break from it. But
yep.
yeah, I'm still thrilled by, and somehow, I'd say humbled in the way that I have the chance to do something that I'm really interested in, that is really creative, that and that sort of connect myself to that material, to that craft, and to the clients, ultimately, that are asking us to do something for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's interesting you talk about that stuff that you need to treat it as a job. I mean, if you start to turn your passion into a business, it is a job, but there's a point where you have to get away from it as well. I've
Absolutely.
set a certain day that the shed does not get opened, and I don't answer a work phone call or email or anything. Hell can
Yeah.
freeze over before anything will happen around
Yeah.
that. And it can even be mates coming to town to say, "Do you want to just muck about in the shed?" It's just like, you know what? Not, no.
Really. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, and making furniture for myself, for example, is an interesting topic,
Yeah,
because I like to do it, but I know that if I'm doing it, it's sort of on my own time, let's say, and somehow it still feel like work, because I would be coming to the workshop, I would be doing what I'm doing as work, so I'm not that keen anymore on doing stuff for myself because of that. I'm still doing it from time to time, and we are making a desk for my son at the moment, but it's a bit different, because I take it as, okay, I'm going to show him that trade, what that craft is about,
yeah,
um, to try to see if he's interested into it, and whatever I do around that piece is not only about the piece; it's about the relationship with that person. So it's a bit different in
yeah.
that setting,
Well, that becomes a
but
beautiful thing, though. I mean, it's like if I've got my daughter in the shed, because she's loving woodworking, but she's also loving welding.
yeah, nice, yeah,
So, like her papa is a panel beater and has restored old 1950s international trucks and all of that sort of stuff. So, she
nice,
loves getting in there and doing that stuff. But I'll do that. I'll do that in the shed here when she's here as well. We'll do woodwork and whatever. But again, it's that spark, and it's seeing
yeah,
somebody just getting that. If you see somebody getting that same feeling that you got years ago, there is
yeah.
something so great about that.
Yes, I think on my side, I'm also at a point in my journey where I feel like I have a lot of skills and a lot of knowledges around that craft,
Yep.
and I'm not getting any younger, so I'd like somehow to give that to someone,
Are you
to
becoming
pass.
one of those grumpy old buggers, mate?
Maybe. But that's the feeling here. It's to say I don't want to keep that for myself only. I want to give that to someone else so they can enjoy, that thinking, that knowledge, these skills, and all the stuff that you can do around that. That woodworking, furniture, cabinet making, whatever you call it.
I so agree with you about that sort of stuff because when I grew up, there were so many gatekeepers of the knowledge. There were
Yes,
so many people who just wanted to hold the knowledge, and it was just like this sacrosanct thing that nobody would let go of. And I'm so keen now about being able to share that knowledge. And that's a little bit part of why I wanted to do these types of interviews as well, to share the fact that we're just ordinary people. We've just learnt a lot of shit over a lot of time.
that's right. Yeah, and I feel that I've learned the hard way somehow, in the way that I've made all the mistakes that you can make, and I've just had to work through them and to find ways to do things.
Yep.
And I feel like, well, if I can give a few tips, a few tricks for the next person to avoid, that pitfall, well, why not? Yeah.
I think you're spot on because especially for people who've been around for a long time, you do know those tricks. And people who are newer to it, it takes so long to learn that last 15 to 20%. The
That's
first
right. Yeah.
80% you can learn pretty quickly,
Mm.
relatively. But that last 20% of just being, a top end craftsman of what you do, that's
Mm.
the hard stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Completely. I can't agree more with that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that stuff is not in books. It can be on the internet. It can be on tutorial these days. But often I find that you just have to have that sort of, we are talking about problem solving, mind. You just have to work that out yourself, and because it depends on the jobs, it depends on what you have in hand to do it, and and there are principles that you apply to find solutions, but it's really a matter of being creative, not only in the way you are designing stuff, but in the way that you are making them somehow technically, I'd say. Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of it also depends on your resources. I mean, not everybody can have a shed full of Festool. Not everybody can have the this, that, and the other. A lot
I've
of
got a
people have to start on a budget, and you've got to work your way up. I mean,
yes.
I didn't start with a Vic Mark lathe. I I started with something else, and now I've got a couple. But it's that thing of that's also part of earning your stripes. But it's also
That's
knowing what you need without being a wanker either. I mean, you can have all the Festool under the sun, but you may not be using the Festool for what it's actually supposed to be used for, if you get what I mean.
yeah. Yes, true. Yeah. I'm very reasonable about buying tools and machinery.
Yep.
And I'm always thinking, how many times a week are you going to use that tool or that piece of machinery, or that whatever equipment you're buying, and if it's less than once a week, I think twice about buying it.
Yep.
And that's around, well, the money that you spend, but that's also around the space that you have to store all these equipments. So if you are not using them, they are taking space, and that space is valuable somehow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that in my workshop, the tools that are there are well used, and and if they are not, that's a problem for me. So I don't make the sort of mistake of being over-equipped, let's say.
No,
Yeah,
and I mean, you've got a smallish space for what you're doing.
it is a small
In
space.
reality, your workshop is relatively small, so
So if
you've got to be you've got to be compact in your footprint.
we can have a tour of the workshop now. You'll see
Hang
that
on, tell you what, if we're going to do the tour, just let me stop for a minute. Starting to get dark, mate. We're at the short time of the year though here in Australia.
Yes, well, I'm just outside the workshop now, so that's my van, and that's the main sort of roller door, and we can have a bit of a look at that space if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, if you're happy doing that, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is, as we said, a smallish space for what we do, which is furniture and cabinetry.
Yep.
And we are here in the main sort of main room, I guess. Yeah. It's altogether 150 square meters.
It's awfully clean, mate.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a freak about cleanliness, and because
I know you lose your mind when you come to my shed.
And because my son is coming during school holidays, to give me a hand. It's easy to keep the shed clean because he's cleaning.
It's good having staff.
Yeah. So that's the planar thicknesser here.
Yep.
And that's the panel saw.
Your panel saw. Yep.
Yep. Here, and we have smallish belt sander.
Yep.
It's not a big one, just a 900 with one belt, but that's enough for what we do.
That's plenty big enough, though. Really, hey, I mean, any more than that's really overkill.
That's one of the bench here, which is on casters.
Okay.
So we can move because we need to move it quite often. A few clamps here. You need clamps when you are doing woodworking. That's part of it. And this is the space where I'm working most of the time. And I've got sort of a board on my bench at the moment because I've been making that sort of big entertainment unit for the past 2 weeks, let's say.
Yep.
And I needed a bit more space to do some gluing. So I just put, a board, like a melamine board on top of my bench, my workbench.
Yep.
See that? And this is our kitchen as well, by the way. So that's a sort of shared between timber and food. And we are back in the main room with the panel saw, which is behind some elements of that TV unit here.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the stock is upstairs. And I don't have a huge stock, but I probably keep, I'd say, the equivalent of 4 to 5 cubic meters of timber there.
Yep.
The same 4 or 5 species, mostly. And then that's the office, which is also the dining room and also the showroom. So a multi-purpose sort of space. Yeah.
The dust-free area.
That's right. Kind of.
In theory. I'm coveting the notion of actually having a clean room, a finishing room.
Yes, yeah.
Because in my shed with turning, predominantly, if I'm doing restoration as well, then doing finishing is just a nightmare.
Yes, I'm using mostly hard wax soil as a clear finish these days.
Yep.
And that's pretty forgiving when it comes to dust.
At least you can wipe that down. It'll tack off really nicely, and yeah. Nothing like any sort of urethane gank that it's just yuck.
Yeah, but I when I do a lot of it, I sort of close my kitchen area space, and I can put an aircon, and I can still keep a bit of ventilation and have a fairly a low dust, let's say, environment to do that very important part of the process, which is finishing.
It so is, and
Yeah.
I guess it's one of the things that I talk to the guys who I teach so much about is it's about you can spend all that time making and doing all that sort of thing, but unless you're doing the prep work for the finish
Mhm.
and then the finish on it, because that's what people see.
That's right, and
They don't
that's
care
it.
about the process. They
Yeah.
they really don't.
Client rarely complain about, let's say, a millimeters or two out of whack here and there, but they would complain about the color if the color is not what they are expecting,
Yep.
and the quality of the finished surface would be something that they instantly know about, are aware about, because one of the first things that any client do when you bring a piece of furniture is they run their hands on the piece.
They'll touch it. Exactly.
But,
Yep.
so if the finish is rough or if it's sort of, inconsistent or whatever, yeah, they
Or if
will
it's
pick up.
plasticky or anything like that. Yep. They
Yeah,
want to feel, especially if they're paying the high end price, they want to feel the wood.
yes, that's right.
And they want to be able to see into the wood, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Like with the
yeah,
finish, that it's not just a glossy thing on top, that you're actually looking into the timber. Yes, it will refract and reflect, but
yeah,
yeah. And I love the fact that people get that picky, to be brutally honest. And I love the fact that, I mean, I do that with students that I won't let them leave the shed sometimes until they've got a certain level of finish.
yes, yeah, yeah. I think that it's important for us to do a good job as woodworkers, to do good joinery, to make sure that the proportions, the design is right, that the piece is functional, and that sort of stuff. But it's yeah, all the small sort of technicality that we spend a lot of time working on and thinking of are not that important for the end clients. They are more important for us, for the craft, and for what we do and what it means to us to be doing that woodworking business somehow. Yeah.
Exactly. But they're all the great things that we can then teach on to that next generation or two about quality and about just don't slap it together. Because if you're going to do that, go to Big W, go to Kmart, go to IKEA, go to the box shop. That's fine. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
But if you want something from me, you will get it of a certain standard. And if anybody is in my shed helping me to do stuff, then that standard needs to be as equal as if I'd been doing it.
Yes, and I think we need to be proud of what we are doing, because we are doing something that is different. We are at the end um, how to say that the goal is not to make money. Money is important and we have to, but it's not the end goal of what we are doing. The
You're
end goal
never
is,
going to be rich, brother.
that's right. The end goal is to create. It's to make sure that things are done as well as they can be done. It's to respect the material that we are working with, to
Yep.
respect the client that we are working for, to respect all the people that are, sort of evolving around that sort of small entity that we are at the center of. And I'm talking about suppliers, employees, everyone that is sort of in contact with you. I think that's where we are at. We have to have that sort of work ethic, I guess. Or
So how is that
um,
changing for you a little bit now? Now that because what we do normally is it's a pretty solitary thing usually. But when you
yes,
get to a certain point, now that you've got your son in the shed and you've got someone else in the shed periodically who's with you. Does
Yeah.
that change the dynamic about how you work or how you teach, or is that or do you actually really want the people in your shed to have a very similar sort of philosophy to what you do?
Yeah. So at the moment, I've got two persons working with me, and that's Jack, who's been working with me for 6 years, and he works 3 days a week.
Yep.
And Erin, who is working 2 days a week, and she started just a couple of months ago. And I had people on and off as yeah. So we were talking about evolving, growing as a business, I guess, and starting to employ people and what the challenges that comes with that.
And that it's not just you then anymore. You're then responsible for people, but people also then have ideas.
That's right. Yeah, I was very lucky to find Jack when I started employing someone, because he's very chill, very easygoing, and I'm really grateful and very thankful that he is sort of stuck with me, because there were times where it was not that easy to be around that little sort of struggling business, I guess.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, employing people is challenging. I mean, any small business owner would tell you that this is the most challenging part of the business. And in addition to Jack, I had quite a few people coming and going into this workshop over the years.
Yep.
And not all the stories are happy stories, to be frank and honest. But I'm aware now that there's some risk and danger associated with what we are doing, and I don't really like being on my own in the workshop anymore. I used to kind of like it.
Yep.
And find it, sort of meditative, and I could get into that sort of zone and get into the project and not think of anything else, and just keep going, keep working. Working with others is kind of the end of that, because you have to interact, and you're asked to help, or you need help, and you are sort of in that sort of relationship during the day, let's say. But I think that's, for me anyway, that's the way to go now. I don't want to be on my own anymore in that business, in that workshop, and I want some help as well, because I like big projects. I like heavy stuff somehow. I enjoy them because they are challenging, because they are, they come with all the reward that you can imagine, and not only financial reward, but also, all the thinking around how to make that happen when it's big and heavy. And that means also having work coming from elsewhere, like interior designer, architects, builders, and I like that sort of interaction, dealing with this other sort of creative people somehow.
That's really fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that means having another pair of hands in the workshop pretty much at all time, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I think it's a matter of finding the people that you are happy with, as well.
Yep.
Jack is definitely one of them. Erin, we were talking about her before. She's amazing, super chill, and she has that sort of, technical mind, and
That's the background. Yep.
yeah, that's
You
right.
kind of find your tribe, don't you?
Yes, yeah, true, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
little bit like being a muso, mate.
That's it. Which I am as well. So I
I
understand
know.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, have you been making
And,
any instruments or are you just playing?
well, I'm playing with a friend at the moment, Amy, and we are having a little duo together. I'm playing tomorrow, by the way, at the Herbert for the folk club night
Yeah,
at
yep.
7 p.m. You want to
That's a
come?
great pub.
Yeah, it's good. So we are playing a bit of. So I'm French, of course. And he's Italian, Emiliano. So we are playing a bit of a mix, let's say, of French, Italian, and Australian songs.
Okay.
Um, Singing in 3 languages. Myself mostly with a French accent. Let's be honest, whether it's English or Italian. It sounds like it's the work of a Frenchman. But yeah, what can you do? You never lose your accent, I guess.
Maybe that's all
Yeah,
part of
so
being a maker. It's just about exploring all these different things because I think there's so many of us that do it. We find our discipline, but we also just like dabbling in doing other things that make us happy.
yeah. I'm a very keen kiteboarder as well. That's a big part of my life.
Okay. Yep.
Kiteboarding, now kite foiling, and because of that, I'm sort of in another sort of and that's important for me. I've been sailing, windsurfing since I was 16. I started with my dad as a teenager, and I'm really glad that he actually took me and started it with me, because that was the idea. He said, "Well, I want you to sail with me." He was doing more like small sailing boats, like Hobbycat or Laser.
Okay. Yep.
And I was very seasick and I couldn't do it. So I said, what about we try something else, like windsurfing maybe? And that was it for me. I just loved it. And
So you don't get sick windsurfing, but you do get sick on a yacht.
I do get sick windsurfing as well,
Okay.
or kiteboarding.
Yep.
But because I'm on my own and sort of in control, I can stop whenever I want,
Yep.
go back to the shore, and that's it. But I'm sort of regularly sick doing that stuff, and sometimes really sick. But I can sort of deal with it, let's say. And because I love sailing and I love being on the water, I just
Yep.
I just sort of need to do that to be happy somehow.
I agree. I need to be able to see the sea.
Yeah. Oh, look, the beach is definitely my happy place. Um, I
The yacht
just
and the sails are my happy place.
Yes. Well, I'd like to do that, but yeah, it's unfortunately I can't really do it. I've tried. Believe me, I've tried very hard to sort of find a way around that problem of motion sickness, but it's just what it is. So
Exactly. It is what it is.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, but yeah,
Awesome. Well, Remy, we've been yarning for well over an hour.
that
As
much.
well as we
Yeah.
tend to do when we catch up and have a bit of a chat. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
actually, we haven't done it for ages, have we?
I No, I haven't seen you face to face for quite a long time, actually.
It's been a while.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
we've been talking about you with Erin quite often, but
All things
so you
nice, I hope.
yeah yeah of course, but that's true. Yeah. Are you still doing the market from time to time there?
Every now and again, but I normally only do it with like students of mine. I don't sell my stuff as
Yeah,
much. I I kind of just don't need to. I sell
yeah,
more of that stuff online, or yep, or if people come to me and they want specific things, or if I post something, yep, like that. Um, been a little bit more difficult with changes to our political brethren in various other places in the world.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
has made
yeah.
things a little bit more difficult to move product internationally, I must say.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
Ah, badly,
Yeah, okay.
really
Wow.
badly. Yep, it's had a big impact. But anyway, these things happen. But I guess
Mm,
also, if you're a small business owner, and that is because a lot of my market was traditionally actually into America and into certain parts of Europe,
okay.
and yeah, those markets have changed lots.
Yeah, in the past few months, I guess.
No, I'd go to the last 8.5 years.
Okay. All right. That much. Yeah.
That long, but yeah, the last 6 months have been particularly challenging.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
yeah, but I guess it's the same as coming the other way, in terms of quarantine issues within Australia and various things like that. It is what it is. And to be brutally honest, I would much rather keep Australia a happy, you know, biometric bug-free place where we don't have all the gribblies.
Mhm.
So I kind of get it, but I don't get some of
Yeah,
the other stuff. But again, that's about business and that's just about making a quid. But if things change, then you've got to change yourself in terms of how you then move around the market, to find different customers. But I guess if I'm doing more teaching these days, it isn't as critical really about
yes,
what I
yes.
what I sell.
Is the Australian market too small for you, Dale?
Not now. Not now that I'm more known and not
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess that my work is now being seen a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess once you get to a certain level of, what do you say, notoriety, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But once you get known,
Well, exposure, I guess, is a good
it,
way to say it as
it
well.
it
Yeah.
is the exposure, but then your price point changes too.
Yes. True. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not just competing with the local bloke at a market who's making a breadboard.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm doing different stuff. And look, if
Yeah.
I had to make an income out of selling solely out of a market here in Townsville, I I couldn't.
No. 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 No.
No.
And nobody can, I believe. So.
I,
Yeah.
I would be very, very doubtful, to properly say openly and honestly that you're actually truly running a business, a woodworking business specifically out of a market here in
Mhm.
North Queensland. Pardon me.
Yeah. No.
You're taking the piss, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. I've never been tempted, and I've never seen the point for what I'm doing to have that sort of presence on the market, or that renegade sort of Christmas market. I don't think that's my business is not there. So
No, no.
yeah,
My business is there occasionally, but not so much to sell product. It's more to promote me and then get people come through my door that they want to learn.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess it's one of those things that you've got to be able to show that you've got a decent, high enough quality of work and a diversity of work for people then to trust you to pay you money to teach them
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. How to do it? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, but I guess I still sell a lot into the rest of Australia, and the big stuff and the expensive stuff. A lot of that will go into large hotel chains or to big houses in Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like that's the reality of it. But I guess sometimes when you've got a price point, they're the people that can afford it.
Mm, mm.
So, but it also has got to be of a certain quality, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, true, true.
You know,
Yeah.
it's the same as your tables. You know, if you're making a table that's, $4,000 or $5,000, it's got to be a really, really good table because
Yes.
that designer is going to talk to that other designer or to that house stager or to whoever else. So all that word
Yeah.
of mouth is so important.
It is. Yeah. 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 My market is still a local market, and
But that's awesome though.
I'm sort of, let's say, going from I do the occasional work, for, let's say, Cairns or what down south it would be. I did work for Roma at some stage, and
Okay.
a bit
Yep.
of work for the Outback. Yeah, I've got quite a few clients, sort of Uenden, Julia's Creek, all this sort of western part
Yep.
of
Out of
Northern
Western Queensland.
Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't think my place is in Brisbane, for example. I think there are enough very talented makers down there that
Yeah.
supply the market, and I can't see why I should be or could be, into that market.
But why would you
So,
poo in your own nest if you've got a very established business here with a great clientele and great word of mouth, and you've got a waiting list as long as your arm? Why would
yes,
you go and do something silly like that? It just makes no economic sense.
that's right. And what I was going to say is that I can't remember now, but um, yes, it's being part of that community as well for me. That somehow makes sense, and I know my clients. I meet them around. I know my
Yep.
suppliers. I meet them around. I mean, I'm sort of, yeah, into that space at that time, I guess, and I like that. So I don't want to go elsewhere.
No, 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 no.
And for
Again,
what
you
and
found your
for what I
tribe.
do, it's and for what I do, the market is big enough around anyway. I don't want to grow much bigger than what I am at the moment. So yeah, it's yeah, you have to be happy with with what you are doing and where you are doing it and how you are doing it at some stage, I guess, and that's where I am at the moment. So yeah, why changing? Why wanting to go bigger or better, or it's not in that way that I want to be better. I want to be. I still want to improve my woodworking skills. I
Yep.
still want to be more generally a better person, let's say. But I don't want to be more, I don't know, richer, or I don't want
I don't
to
think we're
have.
fighting for sheep stations here, mate, are we? And it's not what I don't think that's who we are.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
think if you talk, if you talk to Joel or to you or, to me or any of the Ferguson mob or any of that lot, if you're looking at, that, those local makers around town, it's not fighting for making a million. It's actually being as good as you can possibly be and being an amazing craftsman, as good as you can be.
Yeah. And in my case, it's also making a living out of it. I think it's important for me.
Yep,
And that's
I'm still paying for school fees big time, mate. I can tell you.
yeah, yeah. And that's always been the real challenge in my mind, was to do something that I love, that I'm passionate about, and being able to make a decent living out of it.
Awesome, Remy. Hey, thank you very much for your time, brother.
That's the final word.
Too
Thank you.
easy.
Thank
All
you
right,
very much
hey,
for
folks, I'm going to whack down some info about Remy down in the thing down there, down in the belowy thing. You know how it all works. Yep, and we'll do that. All right, Remi. Cheers, brother.
Thank you, Dale.
A huge thanks to Remi for all his time and for some technical difficulties. He's a really interesting bloke to have a bit of a chat to. I hope you enjoyed it. Okie dokie, we'll catch up with another interview next time.